Dr. Evelyn Hart had seen her fair share of horrors in her years as a surgeon, but nothing could have prepared her for what awaited her at St. Augustine's Hospital that night. The hospital, an aging monolith of decaying white walls and flickering fluorescent lights, had always carried an uneasy air. Patients often joked it was haunted, and while Evelyn dismissed such tales, she couldn't deny the way the building seemed to groan and sigh, as if alive. It began with a phone call at 2:46 a.m. Dr. Hart, came the shaky voice of Nurse Reyes. We need you in Ward C now." Evelyn sat up, her heart already racing. Ward C hadn't been used in years. After a chemical spill had rendered the entire section hazardous, the ward had been shut down and sealed off. It was strictly off limits. "Why Ward C?" Evelyn asked, the unease thick in her voice. "There's an overflow of patients," Reyes stammered. "It's bad. They're burning up. We don't have enough room elsewhere." Evelyn hesitated. Something wasn't right, but the urgency in Reyes's voice compelled her to act. She quickly dressed, grabbed her stethoscope, and made her way to the hospital. When she arrived, the usually sterile corridors were chaotic. Nurses rushed by with carts of supplies, their faces pale with stress. Patients in beds writhed in discomfort, their skin blotched and glistening with sweat. "What's going on?" Evelyn asked, stopping a young doctor who looked moments away from fainting. "It's a contagion," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Some kind of outbreak. We don't know what it is, but it spreads fast. Half the patients in the ER started showing symptoms within hours. We had no choice but to move some of them to Ward C." A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. She glanced towards the distant end of the hallway, where the heavy doors to Ward C loomed. The air seemed heavier near them, the lighting dimmer. Something about the sealed-off ward felt deeply wrong. "Who authorized this?" Evelyn demanded. The doctor didn't answer. He simply shook his head and hurried away. By the time Evelyn entered Ward C, the stench hit her like a wall. The fluorescent lights above flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows across the crumbling walls. Rows of beds lined the room, each one occupied by a patient writhing and moaning in discomfort. But it wasn't just their suffering that made her stomach churn. It was what was happening to their bodies. Their skin wasn't just blotched, it was peeling in patches, revealing raw tissue beneath. Veins bulged unnaturally, crawling up their arms and necks. One man clawed at his chest, as if trying to free himself from something inside. Another woman's eyes were pitch black, tears streaming down her face as she whispered incoherently. "What the hell is this?" Evelyn muttered, barely able to keep her composure. Nurse Reyes appeared, her face ashen. "We don't know. It's like their bodies are breaking down from the inside. And the worst part, anyone who comes too close." Before she could finish, a patient near them let out a guttural scream. Evelyn turned just in time to see the man convulse violently. His chest swelled unnaturally, as if something was moving beneath the surface. Then his ribs burst outward with a sickening sound, and something dark splattered across the room. Evelyn stumbled back, her hand covering her mouth as she fought the urge to vomit. Reyes grabbed her arm, pulling her away. "We have to go," Reyes urged, her voice trembling. "It's not safe." Evelyn was about to follow when she heard it. A faint clicking sound, like nails tapping on glass. She turned back to the man's bed. His body lay still, grotesquely twisted and broken, but something moved within the dark pool beneath him. It was small at first, barely noticeable. A ripple. Then, from the fluid, thin, spindly legs emerged. The thing that crawled out was unlike anything Evelyn had ever seen. A creature no larger than a rat, its body a slick, pulsating mass with needle-like limbs. It moved with unnatural speed, skittering across the floor and disappearing into the shadows. Evelyn's breath hitched. "What? Was that?" Reyes shook her head, her eyes wide with terror. "They come out of them, from the bodies. They're multiplying." Panic gripped the hospital within hours. Patients who had been exposed to the afflicted began exhibiting symptoms. Staff members collapsed mid-shift, their skin already showing the telltale blotches. The creatures multiplied, emerging from the bodies of the dead to crawl through vents and cracks in the walls. By dawn, the hospital was a war zone. Evelyn and a small group of survivors barricaded themselves in the operating theater, the doors reinforced with whatever they could find. Outside, the hallways echoed with the sounds of skittering legs and inhuman screeches. "What do they want?" one of the nurses whispered, her voice barely audible over her sobs. "Why is this happening?" Evelyn didn't have an answer. All she knew was that the creatures seemed to thrive in the chaos, spreading their contagion faster than anyone could contain. As the hours dragged on, the survivors dwindled. One by one, they succumbed to the sickness, or were dragged away by the creatures that seemed to grow bolder with each passing moment. Evelyn's resolve began to crack, her mind fraying under the weight of the horror. By the time night fell again, Evelyn was alone. The barricade had been broken, the creatures swarming in and claiming the others. She sat in the corner of the theater, clutching a scalpel in one hand and a bottle of saline in the other, her breaths shallow and ragged. The hospital was silent now, save for the faint clicking of the creatures roaming the halls. The air was thick with decay, and Evelyn's own skin itched where the first blotches had appeared. She knew it was only a matter of time before the sickness consumed her. But as she sat there, her vision blurring and her strength fading, she realized the truth. This wasn't a natural disease. This wasn't an outbreak. It was a purge. The creatures weren't killing indiscriminately. They were targeting the sick, the weak, the vulnerable. They were cleansing the hospital, one body at a time. And Evelyn, she was next. As the darkness closed in, she heard the faint clicking grow louder. The creatures were coming, and this time there would be no escape.